Just circling back on the Fed, because I know how much you love talking about them.
They were named the Federal Reserve so people would confuse the fact that they're not a private corporation. They are a private corporation owned by the bank.
You saw folks liquidating their gold at these all-time highs. I mean, doesn't it puzzle you a bit? I mean, it puzzles me.
I don't think it's any surprise that we're seeing the gold and silver markets move higher. People are reaching more for a hard asset, which is gold, and I think that that's going to continue. We're dealing with the fiat currency that is absolutely worthless because it doesn't mean anything, because there's nothing backs it. It's a pure manipulation game of making prices lower and stripping the dollars of their value. Whether it's going to be a revolution or another civil war or these tough times that are being created here, you might need hard assets to be able to buy groceries. I think we're so close to that happening and that event occurring, and depending on how the election goes this year and what they try to do now, you have so much hatred in this country now that people are getting concerned, and those who have it understand they may not be able to access it, so they better have another form of currency, which would be in the fact of gold and silver.
Hi everyone, Daniela here from ITM Trading. Just a quick message before we get to today's interview that if you haven't done so, I urge you to book a free strategy session with one of my brilliant and incredible colleagues over at ITM Trading. They can walk you through a very informative session on building a strategy surrounding gold and silver to protect your future. It's free, it's super enlightening, and I urge all of you to do so. You can book a Calendly appointment in the link below in the description of this video. We'll get to today's video now. Thank you. Welcome back to the Daniela Cambone Show. Well, a recent New York Fed survey finds that Americans see no sign of relief and they expect inflation to keep burning a hole in their pocket. To talk about this and so much more, Todd Bubba Horwitz is back of BubbaTrading.com. Bubba, always good to see you. You came all decked out for me today.
Danielle, I have to be my best for you, and happy Mother's Day to you for yesterday. What a great day for you, and we got to be ready to go because we might not have any money left soon.
You know what? My mom would always tell me, you're going to see Mother's Day will be your favorite day of the year. So now I know exactly what she's talking about. All right, but let's talk about some ugly stuff here. No surprise to you, I'm sure, Bubba. U.S. consumer expectations for inflation and home prices rose in April while perceptions of the labor market weakened, underscoring an uneasy backdrop for household finances and the cost of living. So, summing it all up, this New York Fed survey finds that Americans are not expecting inflation to cool anytime soon. They're still feeling it in their pockets. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, we're going into stagflation, which is the worst. And if you heard Jerome Powell when he gave his press conference, that he doesn't know nothing about stag and not knowing about inflation.
So I don't see the stag or the inflation, actually.
We're getting it. And you get the jobs that we have gotten are terrible. Okay, they're government jobs, which is not good. That does not help the taxpayer. That does not create anything more but more debt and more responsibility for the taxpayer. So that also helps increase inflation. We have a very, very tough situation here that we're getting a big difference of class warfare now because the middle class is now being turned into the lower middle class if they are upper, and it's a very big challenge. I mean, we've got CPI and PPI coming this week, and the numbers are nowhere near accurate. The fact of the matter is that we are spending more money today than ever. We're making less money today, and the overall running of this country is more like running it into the ground instead of running it to prosper.
Let's talk more. I want to get more in your insights about these misleading job numbers. And I bring this up not just in the US, but in Canada. I mean, this is bananas. Canada's labor market apparently blows past expectations, adding 90,000 jobs in April. But this is against the backdrop of the Bank of Canada just coming out warning about a very bleak and dire economic situation facing Canada. And you could say and argue the same for the US, because as the White House continues to brag about the alleged success of its economic policies, government data shows the country is hemorrhaging full-time jobs, as you say, Bubba, because according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, the number of Americans reporting full-time employment dropped by more than 1.7 million jobs from November of 2023 to the end of March of 2024. So okay, we're being fed lies regarding, or they're just, tweaking the facts surrounding the labor market? I mean, what's your take here?
Well, let's remember that numbers never lie, but the people who report them do. So let's call them liars, first of all. Again, we all focus on the headline number, but if you go back and look at the last 16 jobs reports, 14 have been revised lower. Okay. So not only don't you have the jobs that you think you have, but the jobs that they are creating are government jobs or special program jobs, which do not help the United States of America. They create more debt, they create more problems, and they make the government even bigger and more of a mass disaster than it has been already. And this is one of the problems when you destroy capitalism and you destroy the freedom of the people and you destroy free markets, which is what they're trying to do. You're going to end up in a mess, which is obviously first case will be stagflation, which is what we suffered through in the Carter years. But actually, the responsibility for the stagflation of the Carter years started with Lyndon Johnson, then went to Nixon when he went off the gold standard. And now we're dealing with the fiat currency that is absolutely worthless because it doesn't mean anything, because there's nothing backs it of any of them. It's a pure manipulation game of making prices lower and stripping the dollars of their value.
It's really interesting, Bubba, because Powell's fighting so hard, to not talk about stag or inflation. But experts that are coming on the show, like yourself, I just had Bert Doman on. He's been warning about stagflation for the longest time. Pippa Malmgren just on talking about. So experts are saying, no, we are fully headed for stagflation. My question is, do you think it's going to be as bad or worse than what we saw in the 1970s?
Worse. You have in the 1970s, whether you like Carter or not, he was still for the people. Okay. This administration is not for the people. This administration is trying to destroy people. Okay. They're trying to just look at what they're doing with the borders. Look at what they're doing with Israel. Look at what they're doing, continuing to fund money into Ukraine. They're trying to destroy what we have. I mean, they're trying to let China take over as China moves closer to this country in more key areas. Plus the fact that I'm under the opinion that China is the one that are keeping grain prices lower so they can force the farmers to sell out so they can take control of the food supply of the world. And of course, this is never a good situation. And China already owns the biggest pork producer in the world, which is Smithfield's, which was a United States company. So the administration is allowing this country to fall into the sewer. And it happens to be a very bad situation. So this is a much worse scenario that shows much less hope if this administration stays in power of getting out.
So let's talk about, given the dire landscape. I mean, let's bring this up, Bubba, because I hadn't seen you before gold. No, the last time I spoke to you was before gold's big run here. And for the first time in 45 years, gold has become less volatile than treasuries. As we know, treasuries was the safe haven of choice, the safest thing to own. But now gold beating treasuries. What's this telling you? Are you surprised?
No, I'm not. So, I've said I thought that gold was going to make new all-time highs this year. And yes. I think that it's going to continue to move. I think that some people are realizing, those who have some money are realizing that there's a very good possibility that they may need gold and silver as a currency at some point. You're seeing the destruction of the fiat currency system. Okay, because of course the central bankers are too busy stealing and trying to make things go away and actually devalue currency, making inflation even a bigger problem. So I don't think it's any surprise that we're seeing the gold and silver markets move higher and actually outperforming treasuries, because again, treasuries are guaranteed or backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. How much faith do you have in them having the credit without having to reduce the value of what you have? So people are reaching more for a hard asset, which is gold. And I think that that's going to continue as we watch. I think it's even helped Bitcoin as well, which is, again, it may not be recognized yet as a stored asset value, but certainly it is getting a lot more action and has been able to hold well over 60,000 now.
I want to get your insights. Obviously, you've been in the gold market. You've been covering it for a long time. You've seen all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly. What I find interesting is, given this price run in gold, right? So we get it. We see Costco selling out of gold bars. I mean, there's only a 2-bar minimum. So it's not like the big buyers of gold. Maybe it's the person that just thought, hey, it's fun to own a gold bar. I'm talking about the person that wants to put, $1 $1 million, $500,000, $250,000 in gold. Are you seeing that investor there at these price levels?
I am. I think, again, you're starting to now, the people that have money are now recognizing that they're going to have to defend their money because, yes, the equity markets are still the greatest investment in history. But overall, you may need to get through whether it's going to be a revolution or another civil war or these tough times that are being created here. You might need hard assets to be able to buy groceries. Now, again, I know that's way outlandish and hard to believe, but I think we're so close to that happening and that event occurring. And depending on how the election goes this year and what they try to do now, you have so much hatred in this country now that people are getting concerned. And those who have it understand that although they have it, they may not be able to access it. So they better have another form of currency, which would be in the fact of gold and silver.
And I want to get your thoughts on silver and platinum, by the way. So let me bring that up. But first, one more point. Bloomberg Markets Live Pulse Survey. They asked folks, what's the best bet against inflation? So gold, the haven of choice for decades, was still seen as the best safeguard. 46% of survey participants choosing gold. Okay, I'm not surprised by that. But nearly a third, 30%, said the tech behemoths, so Nvidia and company, were also their hedge against inflation. Does that surprise you? And I mean, Bitcoin was like in fourth place with 5%, but the tech behemoths here, that people are seeing this as a play against inflation. I mean, despite the volatility that you see here.
I can't put myself in that position as that is to protect me.
Right.
Listen, Nvidia's a great company. Obviously, it's exploded higher and all the big behemoths. But, we've seen those things happen. We saw it happen in the 90s with the internet bubble. Now, I do think that these stocks are more in bubble territory than anything else. And they're not hard assets. They still depend on making money and earnings and other things versus gold is just a hard asset that you're going to own. Whether it's higher or lower, it has stored value of something. I have no idea where Nvidia is going to be, but I've said to many that I believe that Nvidia will be back in the 600s before this year is over. And if we get another market meltdown, which again, typically they don't happen in market election years, except for in 2008. But, we're so over leveraged as a country. The banks are so over leveraged as individuals that it wouldn't surprise me if we did get a major meltdown. And it wouldn't surprise me if we got a 50 to 60 to 70% haircut. And what do you think is going to happen to those big tech behemoths when that does happen? They're going to go down faster. So again, I cannot justify recommending anybody going into Nvidia as a hedge against inflation or a hedge of what's going on. I think that they're making a big mistake. They're better off hedging their overall equity portfolio using derivatives to hedge that. And of course, buying gold and silver and platinum.
Okay, platinum. World Platinum Investment Council released its quarterly supply and demand trend report saying that we need to brace for major deficits coming into the platinum market. We're seeing it above $1,000 again here. Thoughts on platinum? Should we hold on to that platinum bar before selling it anytime soon?
Well, listen, the price is where it's at. I own a lot, okay? And I couldn't be a seller here. I mean, at one point, if you remember, platinum was over gold. Now it's less than half of gold. So to me, there's something going on there that doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think you're just going to have to wait it out, which is why when you do buy physical metals, you need to buy with money that you can afford and money that isn't to pay the rent or the mortgage or the car payment. Because, of course, when you have to sell them, you're not going to be happy when the price you're going to get. So I think that I would be a buyer of platinum here still. But again, I'm buying it with money that I can afford. Okay. It's just like I buy Bitcoin because I don't worry if it goes to zero. If it goes to zero, it'll be a loss. But overall, I think that platinum has a much bigger upside than gold and silver over the long haul because I expect it to go back over gold at some point.
Right. And to that point, I mean, you saw folks liquidating their gold at these all-time highs. I mean, wouldn't you say, like, unless you really had to because you needed cash, but I mean, doesn't it puzzle you a bit? I mean, it puzzles me.
People always puzzle me. I didn't sell it. I didn't sell an ounce, and I'm not going to sell an ounce. My kids will probably sell it when I drop. Then my gold will be sold. but I have no reason to sell it. I can still
You
live.
need to educate them, Bubba. Come on, they know.
You know, they want the money. They don't realize they'll be educated, believe me. But my point is that again, unless you need the money for a reason and you want to sell it all the time, I have no problem with people taking a profit. But I think that you have to have a much longer view of life and where you're at. And if you're making a good enough living and don't need the money and you have enough gold to sell, then you probably make enough money to go ahead and live and hold on to that gold, because I think over time it's going to be a tremendous investment. And again, my real concern is it's going to be needed for a currency for a while once again.
Thoughts on silver? You brought up silver, and I know that people always write in saying we don't talk enough about silver on the show. What's your gut feeling? Look, I know you've loved silver more than gold at one point.
I still do, because I think it's got a much bigger probability. You know, I think if silver can finally break through 30, it's trading at 28.50 right now. I think if it can break through 30, I think it's on its races to 40. Okay. I think if it can break out, it's been in this real tight range when you look at it for years. Okay. If it can break out of that range and get off to the races, I think it closes the gap on gold as well. And of course, you're going to need some silver. If I'm correct on my hypothesis of that you may need it as a currency, you're going to need some silver, because you're going to need some smaller change, because you're not walking into a store with a 10-ounce gold bar that'll be worth $40,000 and you got to make change for a loaf of bread. So, I mean, you got to think about those things, but I do think silver has a much bigger possibility than gold as far as a percentage gain. I mean, gold's going to continue to gain, but I think silver is going to close the gap between the gold and silver ratio.
Let's wrap on this, just circling back on the Fed, because I know how much you love talking about them. This was an article on Zero Hedge, quoting a page from Peter Schiff's blog. While in office, Trump blamed the Fed for tightening monetary policy. Now, members of Trump's team allegedly plan to give a re-elected Trump more power over the Fed, igniting panic from mainstream economists about a politicized Fed. The article says, but anybody who actually understands what causes recessions could tell that this framing is at best incredibly misleading. The Fed doesn't prevent recessions, it directly causes them. These days, the tightrope analogy contributes to the myth that while difficult, a recession is possible to avoid. It isn't. All the Fed can do is delay and amplify the painful correction that earlier monetary policy made inevitable. So look, the Fed's always fighting to show, no, we're not political. We're not tied to any party, but come on.
Listen, they were named the Federal Reserve so people would confuse the fact that they're not a private corporation. They are a private corporation owned by the banks. Okay. But they do make the situation worse. They destroyed the free market price discovery. You can see what they do with interest rates. We all know that interest rates, even at 5%, are still cheap. Okay. That is not correct. If you had the free market, will tell you that interest rates could be 7 or 8% without a problem. But the Fed, starting with Alan Greenspan, was the original bubble builder. Okay. But when you go into that office, you go into that glass tower, you become a moron and you suddenly want to be in bed with the president. And Donald Trump, as much as I liked him and thought he was a great president, he begged him for rate cuts as well when he wanted them, because he knew that it was a political stance. And again, I didn't agree with him then, and I don't agree with it now. I think that, first of all, I think the Fed, according to Ron Paul, and I agree with him, that it should be ended. But at worst, we should have some kind of audit of what the Fed is doing, because we don't get a fair audit on either the Federal Reserve nor the banking system itself. We get this, they're strong. They passed the stress test. Well, I want to know what the stress test is that they passed. That's what bothers me. So I think that overall, the Fed needs to be abolished, or it needs to actually follow its mandate. It's got two mandates: jobs and price stability. That's it. They don't need to be worrying about all this other crap that they deal with on a regular basis.
Last point for you as we wrap. It might be 2021 all over again. As we're speaking, GameStop soaring over 70% as Roaring Kitty, who drove the meme craze, has resurfaced. We are seeing Reddit, Robinhood surge. Is the meme craze back and alive and kicking?
It may be. It's obviously those are very hard things to project and predict. Okay, certainly it could be set up for a trap. It could be ending, but yes, it is up dramatically today. It's been holding strong, and again, you get these players in thin markets that get very oversold. When you get that short squeeze, it pushes prices a lot farther than you can possibly imagine. And I would think that is this. I mean, GameStop is not really a true viable company unless they have something new coming. But at the end of the day, you get enough buyers. They tried it with silver, if you remember, and it worked for exactly one day.
That's
but
right.
GameStop is not silver. GameStop is a company that has a limited amount of shares, so they can do a lot of damage here. And it wouldn't be surprising because, of course, they're trying to create market action because there has been none. I mean, I've never seen the markets this slow in my 45 years of trading.
We could see a silver squeeze repeat.
Oh, I would think so. But again, when they were trying to do it, they were pushing it from lower levels, and they tried to, create that. And everybody I told when I saw that big gap up on that silver when they tried to squeeze it was sell into the rally because there's no chance. Silver is too big. It's not the same as a stock that has limited shares.
Yep. Todd Bubba Horwitz, I love speaking with you. Come back soon.
My pleasure. I love to be on your show. You're the best.
Keep telling it like it is. Todd Bubba Horwitz.
That's me, baby.
We'll see you soon. And stay tuned. We'll have more incredible interviews coming your way. So don't forget to sign up at DanielaCambone.com to stay on top of it all. That's it for me. Thanks for watching.